Have you ever wondered why some horses are completely sound? I'm talking 100% healthy, but they're still not living up to their fullest potential. Well, I'm Kendra Dixon. I'm founder of Stall High, and you've just clicked on a webisode where you're going to get to listen and learn from one of the most amazing equine behavior specialists in the horse world, James Davison. This webisode is brought to you by Merhow Trailers. If you haven't pulled a Merhow, well, you need to. All right, guys, let's get to it. I'm so glad you're here. Of the day, I want to introduce our Wednesday coach at Stall High. James Davison has been a mentor and a hero of mine for many years now. And I first met him when I was teaching a clinic out in Las Vegas during the national finals. Punk Carter originally was supposed to come and help me teach this clinic, and he couldn't make it. And he said, don't worry. He said, I'm going to send somebody and you're really going to like this guy. And James Davison showed up, and I just immediately respected him as a horseman. I learned a lot that day. And every day that I've had an opportunity to have a conversation with James since then, I've always walked away learning more than when we first start the conversation. So James, just a quick background on you. Tell us, briefly who you are, what you do, and we're so excited.
Well, currently I live in Gonzales, Texas. I still train some horses. I have a preconditioning feed yard. I also work for a company as a cattle consultant, going to ranches and feedlots and helping them sell their product and set up management protocols for that product. Been riding horses, everybody says, all their life, but I probably didn't start riding serious till I was about 9. Then it was a job at that time, so you had to pay attention, and did a lot of work, just working cows, helping my dad pen and gather, branding, gathering yearlings, doctoring yearlings, all of that. Went to college at Texas A&M. Class of 1984, animal science. Went on to graduate school a little and decided I was tired of school and left before I finished my master's because I got a good job offer. So since then, I've been managing and riding. First job I started, we started 152-year-olds a year, and I worked there for 6 years. That was kind of, you get put in that spot where you're the 2-year-old specialist, and you deal with all kinds of personalities, how to get that many horses in a year to do what you're asking them to do kind of changes your whole approach. And you learn a lot. And so I have some mentors. They're top of the line, world famous horsemen that I got to work with. Every one of them, probably one of the most profound things they taught me is your horse will teach you what you're not doing.
I think you better say that again.
Your horse will teach you what you're not doing. If you listen to your horse, you will learn what to do. And if your horse isn't doing it right, you're not doing it right. So I've always had that perspective is, okay, what am I not doing? What am I not doing? Well, I'm doing that. Why is my horse doing that? And it's either because I have allowed him to do it a different way numerous times. He's not listening to me because he has no respect for me, or I just haven't shown him. And, I knew this was coming up this morning, and I've got some 3-year-olds that I've been riding about 60 days that another guy rode for quite a while. So I'm still learning, but I'm almost to the point where I know what they know and I know what they don't know. And I think that's I can get an idea if I get on a horse 1 or 2 times. I can know if he has some basics, if he has some feel, if he's soft, if he responds to the bridle rein, if he responds to my seat, if he responds to my feet. And then what does he actually know? How does he place his feet when I ask him to do something or I make a transition? And a transition is just basically a change. Does he speed up? Does he slow down? Does he know how to get ready to slow down and move his front feet? What does he know? And if he doesn't know those, then it's my job to teach him, because he's not going to learn those things unless I teach him. And the more natural he is, the less time it'll take him to teach him those things. But his confirmation's going to have a tremendous effect on how natural he is and how quickly he can get ready and how balanced he is, low hocks, low knees, good neck, short back, long underline. All of those things are going to determine how easy it is for that horse to perform the maneuvers I need him to do the job I'm asking him to do. So I've been a student of conformation, I don't know, for years, because my dad was. I mean, everywhere we went, we bought, we'd buy 200 or 300 bulls a year, and he'd go, go picking bulls, boy. So I'd watch those bulls travel. You'd look at their body, you'd look how much meat they were, how thick they were, blah, 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 scrotal circumference, how pig-eyed they were, whatever your criteria was. So I became a quick eye because I knew what I was looking for. And then same thing with horses. When I was about 14, we had 400 head of geldings, and those were also, quote, using horses. And my dad gave me too much to sort down to 100. And so that was a big learning process. And I had to put my calls for that day over in a trap, and he'd go look at them and he'd go, "Why don't you like that?" So, "Well, you don't ride very good." "Well, what does that mean?" And I go, "Well, for one thing, he trots like a jackhammer and he lopes like a wounded goose. And so guess what? I don't want to ride him all day." "Well, why does he do that?" "I don't know. Is that neck's on upside down, whatever." I said, "He's just not made real well. He doesn't have any balance." "Okay, haul him sail." So we got through all of those horses and got down to the real usable horses. And when I was done, we were down to about 74, if I remember right. And I'm going to tell you, those 74 were good rascals. I mean, like the old guy I used to ride with, he said, "Boy, they can pick it, pull it, or haul it to the gin. They can do it all." And they could trot, they could lope, they could stop, they could roll back. They didn't beat you up all day. They watched the cow. If you said go get one, away they went. And when you got your lat rope on one, they got a hold and let you handle that cow. So that's where I developed what I like and what I don't like. Then when you go throw your shingle out there and say, "Hey, I'm a trainer," they bring you stuff that's less than optimal. So you don't get to necessarily cull all the time because you got to pay the bills. So you figure out different ways to get that horse to do what you're asking him to do. And sometimes you just have to accept, hey, this, he ain't going to pay his way, but I did my job. He's broke to ride. He's gentle. Somebody can get on him. They can trot down the road. They can go gather some, a little set of cattle or whatever. He's just not that great a horse. And sometimes our reflection on what we actually have and being able to go, okay, that horse's front, his elbow's way out in front of his shoulder. So how's he going to reach laterally? And he doesn't have any wither and he's running downhill. So how is that horse ever going to really step underneath himself with a hind leg and support his weight so he can pick his front leg up and change directions? So all of those things are extremely important. But I'll never forget one year I worked for Dick Pieper and he had two paints for the paint reining fraternity. And one of them was a big, pretty sorrel and white paint stallion, 3 years old, big, pretty horse, Smoking Jose Cuervo. I'll never forget him. And he is big and pretty, but he had one foot that turned very extreme to the inside, and it was his right front foot.
Mhm.
And then I had this filly, was real low withered, high hipped. Oh, I mean, boy, she was a tank. She was real muscly, but boy, she couldn't gallop. She couldn't lope. She couldn't hold her shoulders up and step with her front feet. So that was the year I probably learned more from two different kinds of horses of any time in my career, because that horse, that stallion, he wasn't very fast to the right because that foot was turned in. Well, I'd say it's turned in 15, 20 degrees to the inside. So when he went to go to the right, that was hard for him. So I had to be patient with him. Everything else he could do, boy, he could really run straight. He could stop uh, and turn around like a rocket to the left. But to the right, you had to give him 2 steps for him to get his rhythm. And then he was good. And he wasn't very steady. That mare, I did nothing but put draw reins on her up to the D rings and teach her to stand up and gallop around and look straight through the bridle for 60 days. And then once she learned how to travel that way up and balanced, the maneuvers came easily. But I know in the past I would take a horse like that and I would have tried to grind the maneuvers into them. I'd have tried to just turn over and over and over and over and over till she got it, which wouldn't have never worked. So what that leads to is make yourself be honest. Can my horse look straight with his ears and straight with his eyes and go straight? And then move his front foot and make a transition. Because you know what our conversation Wednesday night, this what leads me back to when I look at Valor a lot. And like I said, I don't know Donna Kay. I admire her horsemanship because I see the results and I watch that horse and he's calculated. I call it that horse thinks before he does it. So she knows what she has to do. She has to get him ready. So she just gets him to where he's thinking and standing still and quiet and then warms his muscle up and he goes and does his job. And I see so many people practicing the barrels or running reining patterns or just cutting cow after cow, or they might practice on their really good rodeo horse way too much in team roping. And so they make what we want them to do hard by getting them tired. And so I always like to look back and go, does that horse know it? Yes. Do I trust him? Yes. What do I need to do? I need to keep him being a saddle horse, keep him fit, keep him traveling correctly, and keep his mind on just being a good riding saddle horse. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go gather cattle. You know, if you have that opportunity, that's great. But when you go to an event, that horse has to let you get him ready. And the number of times that you have taught him to get ready at home and get relaxed and soft, that's where it's going to express itself, because you're starting all over the first time you go to town. Start all over. I have yet to have one that I didn't have to go, oh man, he ain't acting anything like he is at home. So what do? If I have him where I can put my feet on him and show him where to go with my hands and I have control, then I can go walking, I can get him straight. Pretty soon he goes, oh, well, okay, this is the same thing I did yesterday. So remember, horses can't reason, they remember. And they never forget. And you will learn that the hard way if you break the jar to get the penny, which means if you do too much, they're not going to forget it. And you think you might can, and a year later, boom, that same little spot happens and they hadn't forgotten it. And you got that big, bad adverse reaction. The same thing with horse that's sore. If he goes and makes a barrel run, or you go rope a steer on him, or you're cutting cow, and man, he makes that big move and something grabs him right there and hurts him, he will not forget it. So trying to, you know, work a horse through soreness, sometimes that doesn't work either. And we have to recognize when something like that is going to cause more harm than it is going to be good. So I know that's a lot of talk, but it's when we get to that spot, I like for people to understand what my philosophy is, because if you don't ride them, they don't learn anything. It's that simple.
But how you ride them means everything.
You know, I agree with that. And one of those really great horsemen told me one time, he said, what if a horse gets better 1% a day? How many days it take you to train him? I said 100. He said, well, how come we ride them this long? He said, don't answer. You better go ride and then think about that. So I come back to him. I said, well, I think it's because we're trying to get them ready to train. He goes, now you got it. And getting them ready to train means go forward, go straight, relax, steer. Just be a decent horse that I can go ride, you know, be a saddle horse. And then you can build on that, because you haven't given that horse time to learn to pack your weight, pack a saddle, stand up square, and keep all four legs under himself and go and get his rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
As I told a guy 2 days ago, he goes, man, you sure work on getting them straight and standing up. I said, let me ask you something. You ever tie one to the fence and run up there and try to knock him off his feet if all 4 feet are under him? He goes, well, I never thought about that. I said, just try it. That's why I want all 4 feet under him, because I don't want him to fall down. I want him to be able to do whatever I ask to. And so he has to start with all 4 feet under himself. It's that simple.
It's good stuff. Yes, you covered a lot today. Decades of wisdom. I find it very impressive that your dad trusted you when you were 14 years old to go work the herd.
Well, I mean, he did contributed a lot to that, because I mean, my dad was a cowman. He could ride a good horse, and he could start a colt pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But he never had aspirations to go show a horse. But everything he rode did what he asked him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I guess the reason he trusted me, because he spent a lot of time with us in 4-H as a 4-H leader, teaching us conformation and helping us learn how to judge and taking us to judging, you know. So he felt at that time, and he knew, you know, if you're going to learn to do something, you got to wade in the water, and sometimes you go under and you learn to swim. So that's kind of the way he treated me. And I appreciate it now, because I mean, he'd just say, go do that. Well, I never have had the idea that I could not go do that if it was horseback. I've never, ever thought there was something I can't do a horseback. Now, I might not can do it on the one I'm sitting on, but I'm going to go find me one I can. And I, you know, I truly appreciate that. I told him that the other day we were riding around. And I said, man, sometimes I'd watch you, Dad, and you couldn't ride to the mailbox. And he'd go, yeah, I know, compared to you. But I said, but I appreciate all those opportunities, because that's where I got my basics and my knowledge. And I didn't have to overcome that from doing one event or something growing up. I knew what all a horse could do and how far he could go. You know, how many people know how far a horse can go? And do I want to get in that situation with him? Am I going to run it out of him? No. Not if he's a good one. If he's a good one, you're not going to run it out of him, because he can go a long ways if he's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are the horses that people have the challenges with, because they're ready to do something. And are we ready? Because those are the horses you have to slow down, you have to go slow, and you have to get them to go smooth, because smooth is fast. Vulgar movements, head slinging, shoulders running everywhere. All that stuff costs time. So the faster a horse is, the slower I have to ride.
I think you're tapping into a new vein and a new direction we can take the conversation over the next few weeks
Okay.
in Trainer Day at Stall High, because you did have an exceptional opportunity early in life to learn from a vast amount of horses, and you have studied. You've really enjoyed it.
Sure.
A lot of people, most people, especially now, we don't get the benefit from learning that many numbers. If you just play the numbers, right? You mentioned early on that out of that 75, out of 400, you drilled to 75. How many of the 75 make great ones?
Well, let me say that there was a little chocolate mare in there. I called her Hershey. Had one little bullet hole right here, a white, prettiest mare ever walked. Like the most beautiful mare. She was a great one. You could sword on her. You could tie one down on her. You could pitch the bridle reins to her, and she'd get through the brush. If she stopped and cocked her head, there's something over there. And it might not be good, but there's something over there. And she wouldn't bolt. She was exceptional. Not great. She was exceptional, a one of a kind. She was a own daughter of Lesclo out of a daughter of Rattler. And I mean, just phenomenal mare. 15 hand, weigh 1,200, just really a good mare. Now, the rest of them, when you got down to that bottom 15, they were transportation, but they were acceptable transportation. They didn't have a worn belt. They weren't running on Maypop tires. They, you were going to get the working back, and they didn't, they'd steer, because down at that time in that brush, it's hard to find a horse to steer, and he can't steer too much, because if you're going running through that brush and that brush grabs the bridle rein, he thinks he's supposed to steer. So that's a complicated issue with that horse. And a lot of those horses didn't steer enough, so you couldn't put somebody on them that really didn't know how to get that done. Mm-hmm. And it's just like going to Mexico and getting a bunch of those geldings. I've done that before. Well, none of them back up. They don't back them up. You can go rope something on them, you can ride them around, but they don't know how to back up. Well, is that important? Yeah, it is. When you go to do certain things, if you're going to open the gate, I like to back through the gate. I don't go through the gate forward very much. I like to back through the gate. And boy, they're adamant that they're not going to back up. It's not just we don't know, we're not going to. And that's because they're 7, 8 years old and they've never done it. And that goes back to, are we allowing that to happen? And that has been exactly. So that's we can talk and get in all of this, in which I truly enjoy, but you always have to leave here and go, what's important? What can I do and what can't I do when I go out there to get on my horse?
Well, that's where I think people are getting frustrated. And it's where I too have had an opportunity to ride thousands of horses in my lifetime, not as many as you, but more than most people. And I've definitely gleaned from that experience. A lot of people, even I, would get frustrated with the selection process. If you just play the numbers, and some people only have an opportunity to own, 4 or 5 horses their whole life. Well, the odds, if you just look at the odds and the statistics, there's a whole lot of them out there. So I'm very thankful that we now have Stall High. We have free day Fridays at Stall High like this. We have Trainer a Day coaching in our interactive membership, where people can come and actually ask a team. So you're one of our team coaches on Wednesday. They can ask you for help without playing the numbers to their disadvantage. We can glean from your experience, is what I'm trying to say.
True. You can save the time.
Save the time, save the money, because it's the horse market's booming right now. It may be at an all-time high.
So I'm very thankful to have you in my corner and have access to you to ask these questions like, I don't know. And I think that's where people get really frustrated sometimes with, why isn't this working yet? I dreamed this since I was a small child, and I want to win. I want to win. I want results. I want results. Well, maybe you just don't have the right horse yet, or maybe you don't have the right knowledge, the puzzle piece that's going to fit with this horse. And that's where having access to someone like you, James, can save years and really shortcut that process for us and save a lot of hardship. Sometimes, like you said, that horse doesn't forget. I remember the day, the first time I ever really clocked my head on a gooseneck trailer. I know exactly where that trailer was parked. I know the color. I know how much that paint was faded. I never forgot that trailer or how much it hurt my head. And it happened like that.
Yep.
And I think people discount in a horse. You said something about vulgar movements a minute ago with their head shaking and head tossing. Well, that's a result from vulgar body language, being overly aggressive. Yes. And we don't even realize it.
No.
Most of the time, until you have been trained, until you've had someone coach that out of you and refine your movements, we don't realize the impact or the amount of damage that could be doing to that horse. And long after the mouth is healed, it's still up here. Just like I know I was about 5 years old when I clocked my head on that trailer. I know it. I remembered that day. I don't slip under a trailer ever and not remember that day. So horses do remember. And I've learned that from you this year. Horses don't reason, but they remember.
Yep.
I told you were going to be glad you're here. It's a good thing you clicked on Stall High today. What do you think about James Davison? Are you getting value from this webisode? If you are, please let us know. Go follow Stall High on Facebook. You can email us info@stallhigh.com, or you can simply download the Stall High app and be a member of our community. Now, I want to talk to you about an event we have coming up that's really important. It's called Moody Mare Makeover. So if you own a mare that's moody or not, but you want to know how to get her to her fullest potential, James Davison will be doing a virtual clinic. There are only 5 spots available for in-person riders. So if you want to bring your horse and ride with James Davison in person, this clinic is going to happen April 1st and 2nd. It is the Horse World's first virtual clinic that is just for mares. That's right, mares only. Sign your mare up today at moodymaremakeover.com. Let's get back to learn more from James Davison.
On LinkedIn the other day, there was a discussion on picking up the bridle rein and when the horse softened and the release being the reward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this person chimed in there that she was a behavior studyist, has been an expert, and had deemed that is not a proper reward. But now this person did not ride horses. What she was doing was imposing her beliefs and in all reality, her truth when dealing with animals, and finding that a feed or food or treat reward was a proper reward, and that's what animals responded to. Okay, so there was, as you can imagine, the conversation blew up from the old crude manhandling them cowboys all the way down to ladies that don't do enough.
Yeah.
And boy, everybody kept tagging me in that deal. Bam, 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 bam. And I just said, y'all better think about this for a while, because I did. I thought about it for a day. And I thought, one of the greatest horse trainers ever walked was Jimmy Williams, and he trained with sugar cubes. Why haven't we been doing that? You know, you ask yourself, why haven't we been doing that? Well, I don't know. So that very next day, I go out, and these 3-year-olds that have been a little stiff, I put me some little treats in my pocket, and I just get on them and stand still and pick the bridle rein up and reach around there, and they get them a treat on the left and the right. And man, they got soft. And I thought, boy, I wanted to just take my right hand and hit myself in the head, because I have done that so many times back in the day when I was out there at 9 o'clock at night riding colts by myself, just me and that colt in the dark in the round crowd. And you just try things and that stuff works. But what people misinterpret that is that every time that horse does that, he's supposed to get a reward. So I go, all right. I've seen horses go to, people take horses to the show and them run them over to get their treat before they worked. So I know, and don't get me wrong, I give them those little treats after we go show and have a good run and they get them. Sure enough, yeah. But that's for doing the whole thing. So to me, I've been in a big thought process over that, because like those fillies, I don't give them that treat when I lead them up and saddle them. I give them that treat when I get on them and pick that bridle rein up. Hey, and for the last 3 days, they've been very soft, and boy, they softened up in the turn, and it's been fun. So I asked myself, was she wrong? Are they wrong? Where does that conversation need to go?
Mhm.
And I went back to what I said a while ago. Every one of those guys said, if you're doing it wrong, if your horse isn't doing it right, you're doing it wrong. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And I mean, I just sat there for about 5 minutes and I thought, wow, how many days do we get in the grind and we pass up that one opportunity to show that horse he can trust us and turn his head around there and look, because he can't see us but out of one eye right there.
Mhm.
And that is such a monumental thing for that horse. It ain't for me, it's for that horse. And how many times do I need to do that? And it just goes back to that other thing. You do it till they do it right, which means you do it till they do it for you. So how do I get past having to hold the treat there? Well, every day I start asking for that head with my bridle rein. If it doesn't come, here we go with the treat.
Yep.
Until they respond to that first cue, as you want to call it, or that first feel, as I describe it. So it was a lot of fun. I did not get back in that conversation, and it didn't belong in that spot anyway. But that would be something that if I would love, like Phil Rapp and I were talking yesterday. You know, he's $9 million winner in the cut and one of my dearest friends, and we have great philosophical conversations about stuff. And I said, what about that bay mare you was having trouble with at San Antonio? I'm not having trouble anymore. I said, why not? He said, well, just like you said, I need to find the bottom of her. He said, I found the bottom of her, and she knows I found it. Now she knows I know, and I know she knows, and we're getting along great. So, I mean, we can sit here all afternoon and come up with all that little stuff, but go out and look at your horse and try to learn how he travels and what he responds to, because it's you and him or you and her that have to go get this job done. So there's no really right way or wrong way. There's just the way that works. Hey, and if you need to turn around backwards, so what? I mean, that's a little extreme, but whatever it takes to get it to work, do it. That's all my point was. So we've talked about all this stuff, and whatever it takes to do it is the most important. But I will tell you right now, it takes a lot of thought to figure out whatever it takes. That's the key. And you have to, that's it. You have to spend that mental time.
People are looking for the quick answer. The product, what product can I buy? What product can I buy? Sugar cubes are pretty darn cheap. I remember
Yep.
my papa, you just flashed me way back in time. When I was a kid, he would have a box of sugar cubes
Yep.
and we didn't train with him, but he just enjoyed feeding his horses after we rode
Oh,
them.
yeah.
He'd give them some sugar cubes. But the knowing, Donna Kay and I were talking about this last night. She was at her trailer getting Valor ready. We were in Athens, Texas, Slack.
Okay.
And she was talking about Stall High and talking about this week when she was a guest and spleen dumping. You know, we talked about that. I shared that link with her as well. And we talked about how fun it is to learn. It's fun. We learn something new every day and we learn from our horses. And some people don't value that yet, willing to invest yet in Stall High, willing to be here, invest in training because they're bumping up with that. I don't know if it's a wrong theology, like I don't need a coach. But that horse is an animal. We're expecting them to be a partner, and every other professional sport out there hires professional trainers. It is accepted in every other professional sport, but it's negligent. Specifically, I see it real strong in the sport of rodeo. People think if I can buy it, I can ride it.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't realize they're just wasting years and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars just grinding on them. Like what you said,
So,
grinding, grinding, grinding.
yep, to that point. I have witnessed some of the biggest purchases of horses that were world champion barrel horses, and down in my travels around where I live, you know, $500,000, million, $2 million. And it worked. They did achieve what their goal was. They got a buckle. You know, and something, before I forget, watch Joe B's deal on the Cowboy Channel, you know, because as Joe B and Jenna, and I mean, we go way back to a lot of things through all of that stuff he's talking about. But what do they really have when it quits working? Because it will eventually. And everybody that looks at that goes, well, good. I always go, well, good for them. You know, they got the money. They're going to go have fun. Good for them. And then when it quits working, you don't see them anymore. Because they didn't go through the process and they didn't learn. And so they didn't know how to keep that deal going. So they relied on the horse to do it for them every time. And after a while, the horse goes, I'd just rather go eat grass. Sorry. You know, because he's a horse. That's what drives him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not ever going to change that. And you know, I mean, I'm not saying that makes those people bad people, not at all. Like I said, you have to appreciate that they recognize that. And what I'm leading up to is there's also a lot of people that want the satisfaction of going through the process and getting there. You know, yep. Because I told a kid 4 days ago, he bebopped up here and he wanted to go to work for me, and he said, well, I want to get to go showing. And I said, you ever been the first one to throw your leg over one and take him all the way and win money on him? Nope. I said, well, you ain't a horse trainer. I said, when you get up to our crowd, when you're in our circle, we know that process. We learned that process. And we know you're cheating yourself if you don't go through that process to do it at our level. Now, if that's, you put that in perspective, you know, there's a lady that announces the cut, and bless her heart, she went and bought her a 14-year-old horse. She runs in the 2D every weekend, has the greatest time, does nothing but ride that horse up and down the sand road in front of her house every day and goes to barrel race. And she's as happy as there is. And I'm like, great, good for you, Teddy. You know, hey, that's great. You know, because she's maybe a year or two older than I am, and that's what she wants to do. And that horse is good. Whoever did a job on that horse did a good job because he's broke the ride and he's saddle horse. And so not only do they get to go run barrels and win something, he's a nice saddle horse because he's made right and he's comfortable to ride. So I think we just need for people to get in that mode of understanding the uniqueness and the value of that good horse. Then they would say, okay, now I'm aware of it. Now, how do I respond to it? How do I deal with it? How do I shape it? How do I maximize it? You know, and men are the worst. I worked for a guy that, you know, he had everything, had all the money, had all the power, blah, blah, blah. And he'd show up and go, that horse ain't no good. I go, why? He goes, well, you won't do what I want him to. I said, well, you ain't asked him. He said, no, you don't understand. If I pay that much money for that horse, he's supposed to do it for me.
Right.
And I said, well, you know, you want him to put you in the saddle and walk down there and look at, hey, I'm just going to cut that cow right there. Well, yeah. I said, well, that's unrealistic expectation. I said, you're a grown man. You've made a lot of money. You have great business sense, but you're going to have to change out of that world because the horse, here's the thing most people don't realize. There's no other animal on earth like the horse. None. He fits no other business model. He fits no other mold. He is his unique animal. And he remembers and he doesn't reason. And that's where you have to go, okay. Is he ever going to forget? When you get to a certain level, they don't. And where is that level?
So good. This has been great.
About 12 years old.
I,
Then you
I,
don't.
I love everything you're saying. We were talking this week, Lori and I, products, and I'm going to say even pedigrees, they come and go in popularity. Horsemanship is not a trend.
Nope.
Good horsemanship never goes out of style. If you will invest in it, if you will slow down, and if you have someone to teach you, it becomes so much fun and so rewarding. One of the biggest compliments my dad ever gave me, we took the lead in slack at a rodeo one year. And boy, dad was with me and we were both just walking in tall cotton. It felt good. We were in the lead, like hot dang.
Yep.
And then we got back to the stall and we could hear the announcer, someone outran me by a squeak. And I was like, gosh, dang it. I really thought we were going to hold that. And he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, that's all right, baby. He said, you made yours.
Yep.
I made my horse.
Yep.
And my competitor did not. Again, nothing against her, but I got so much pride in that moment. And my dad was so proud of me.
Sure.
He did not write a check for that moment. For our
Sure.
relationship together and the miles that we rode together, those lessons and that time spent like you with your dad in the lot sorting horses. I got to do that with my dad, training race horses with him and chasing cows on the ranch ponies. But that it made me who I am. And I'm very thankful for that. I didn't appreciate it so much growing up, but I sure do now. It serves me well.
And that's the missing link right now that has to be conveyed. The purpose of the horse. Yes, that horse is for enjoyment and to go have fun, and winning something on him is extremely fun. But what is the true purpose of the horse? Because when you understand the true purpose of him, then your understanding of his actions and what he does and your appreciation for him just is magnified tremendously. Because there is no person on earth can ever make me not like a horse. I just, every day I wake up, there's such a great creature, and there's such something to learn every day. And it, like you say, it's fun. Well, why? Shoot, who don't like to have fun?
That's
I
right.
do.
It's very, very rewarding. James, you're awesome. We appreciate everything that you contribute at Stall High. So those who don't know about Stall High and what's happening, Stall High is not just a social media alternative app where you can go and hang out with horse people and get horse content only, but we also have different levels of online training. If you opt in to something called interactive membership, you can actually dial in to a Zoom just like this one every single week, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Central. We've got a full team of expert coaches. James teaches on Wednesday.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this webisode with James Davison. He's amazing. Every time we get to listen to James speak and share his experience from the saddle and the thousands of horses that he's ridden in his lifetime, it helps us all become better horsemen and horsewomen. If you're interested in attending Moody Mare Makeover Clinic, you can attend in person. There's only one spot left, or you can watch from the convenience of home. Sign up right now at moodymaremakeover.com. And a special thank you to Murr